This ain't rock and roll. This is something else that is some. Yes. This is insecticide.
Ooh. Not deep. That's illegal. Or is it?
Deep. Yummy. You know, if I want to consume deep as a freedom-loving American, I should be able
casual
to.
American.
Yeah. As everyone knows, I'm a libertarian at heart, and that's what I want to do. I should be able to do it. Hey, welcome to Bowiesplaining. We are in peak cocaine season with Station to Station. We made it.
Yay!
Yay!
And in celebration of this moment, we're not using cocaine at all. Wink.
This is our first episode without cocaine.
Wink.
So bear with us.
Oh man, I need some right now.
The format of this one's gonna be a little bit different and maybe interesting for a few reasons. First of all,
this episode might be interesting. Hold on, everybody.
First of all, in a fit of productivity a few months ago, I thought I'm going to compile so many notes for like every album up through, I think maybe even as far as Lodger or Heroes. And I thought I'm going to just shove them all into AI and it's going to spit some stuff out. And when it's spat out, as you know, you're supposed to, check the work and everything, which I did.
Look at it, make sure. Yeah.
Looked at it, make sure. And I looked at it and it made sense. I was like, okay, great. That's totally going to work. And then time passed. And then, how like you have that thing where you're like, okay, I know what I meant. So now I can look at the thing that's being spat out, and knowing what I meant, I'm able to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. But since time has passed, I no longer remember what I meant. So some of these notes are very confusing, but that's fine because, being very honest, this album, Station to Station. Oh, by the way, I'm Dan. That's Eric. This is Bowiesplaining.
Hi.
You're going to figure out what the show is.
David's here too. He's the
here.
Bowie.
Yes. This album is a hot mess in a lot of ways. And so that means that the side A portion is going to mainly be just shit was fucked up. He was on a lot of cocaine.
Wow.
And weird stuff happened. So
it doesn't sound that fucked up when I listen to it, but okay.
No,
I'm in.
Yeah, but it is. And so this episode is going to be kind of, now we're going to record also a separate Patreon thing with either a video or a few videos. This episode itself is also going to be kind of video heavy because, meaning that we will be playing the audio for the video and you will listen to it. You don't have to, if you need to listen to the Young Americans episode to understand how video works and what podcasts are, feel free to go back. Mm-hmm. But anyway,
all right, I'm looking it up right now.
Right. So
hang on, my podcast app needs a 6-digit code delivered to me via snail mail.
So this episode is going to be much like the album itself, a little bit of a hot mess, but I think that's kind of fitting. Now, to get us prepared for this, we are going to listen to David Bowie on.
Oh, wait. So you're saying that this episode can be a hot mess?
Yes. Unlike our other episodes, which are very linear and make a lot of sense. This
is something about genocide. This is rock and roll. Welcome to genocide. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, I was just checking back on that episode. I don't know if that came through at all, and if it did or didn't, that'll help with
it. Did. So we are going to start it off just for funsies. Certain Mr. David Bowie got arrested. Actually, so fun fact, This is footage of him being interviewed after being arrested in Rochester, New York during his tour for Station to Station. And oddly
he's
enough,
on tour.
yes, oddly enough, it was a drug arrest. However, they weren't looking for cocaine. They were looking for pot. So a couple members of his band got a slap on the wrist, and he was fine. All right. It starts somewhere. That's okay. It starts with a picture of the cover for Station to Station for some reason. Don't know why. And we also have
pinups. Okay,
we have a lot of covers of a lot of albums. I don't know
Twiggy.
why. I want to thank News 10 NBC. Oh, it was probably talking about how you might know David Bowie from this album, and who could forget Ziggy Stardust and the motion picture Rise.
Doesn't it look like he's wearing a dress? He might be.
Something you can say about the...
Have some
comment from you, Mr. Bowie?
Get him out here. Here he is. Get him out.
That's it, baby. That's
He's in an elevator. The guy who
Mr. Bowie maintains his innocence. He's never been arrested before in his life, and I think it's quite obvious, a man of his reputation, that if he were in fact involved in drugs in any way, he would have been arrested numerous times.
Could we...
Look at that.
What's your
that ombre fade?
Your reaction to the treatment that you have received in this city?
I thought I was treated very fairly. I thought everybody acted like gentlemen. Of course.
How do you feel about the police?
I just said.
Well, specifically about the police.
They were very, very kind.
I just told you.
Very courteous.
They arrested me because I had drugs. They did their jobs. Thank you.
They weren't looking for this drug though. And he goes poof and he disappears.
His pupils dilate.
Yeah.
Or constrict. Sorry.
So we're recording a side A, and then we're gonna take a little break, and then record a side B. So let's see how that works. Starting off, with
this is a new one, not just recording back to back.
Yeah. So here's some stuff about David Bowie. According to my notes, David Bowie was an influential rock pop musician. I'm not sure if you knew
Was
that.
he British?
You know what? It doesn't say. Hold on. Hey Google.
Okay.
Was David Bowie British? Google has confirmed that he was.
All right.
in fact
Yeah.
British.
Yeah. Stop talking, Google. You got the point
going.
across.
It's still going. So this album, in case you haven't caught on, Eric, is a sort of a transitional phase from glam rock through soul to a more experimental thing.
So we're moving beyond the experiment of let's do music from a country I'm not from that sounds interesting to something else. Do actually something else is the operative word there. It is definitely something else. Well, hey, I mean, that's what he's all about. What Bowie has been doing all along is trying out different genres. And, unlike most musicians, I'm looking at you, Mr. Matchbox.
All 20 of you.
Yeah. He changes things up once in a while.
Yeah.
Or every other album.
It seems to be about every other album, and I think a pattern is established unofficially where it's kind of one album is like a step in the door, and then the other album is like, okay, this is probably what I meant by that.
Let's not do this again.
Well, I don't know if it's so much that. It's like this one is possibly a reaction to Young Americans. I mean, it's not a reaction.
Okay.
And I have some thoughts about that as we get into the more zesty aspects of what's going on with this in the background of this album. So this came right after Young Americans. He had some success with Blue Eyed Soul. And with this one, and this is drawing from a lot of other sources, it's sort of understood that this Thin White Duke character or entity that is kind of invading this album.
Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
Yes, you in the front.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Long time listener, all the time caller.
Okay.
First time you acknowledged me. So I've been subjecting my wife to all of the music that you listen to on the show. And the other day,
are you still married?
we are still married.
Okay, good.
We are still married.
Are you more married?
We are the same amount of married.
Okay, it's the same quantity of married.
Yes, the same quantity of married.
What exactly? What quantity of married are you?
17 pounds.
Okay, good. 17 pounds of marriage. That's
17 pounds of married. That is, yeah. The other day, just in conversation with my wife, with whom I'm still married 17 pounds, I said, "Is it any wonder?" And she said, "I'll reject you first."
Yep.
My response was, "Wait, what?"
Welcome to a very special sort of hell that we call being a Bowie fan. And it's just gonna get worse.
And I said, "Shouldn't you have said that I'm far too cool to fool?"
Oh, and let me tell you, Eric, back in the day when the forums were active, there was so much of that sort of humor. And every time I encountered it, I was like,
Gosh.
Someone typed that.
People from the forums who've switched over to listening to this nonsense. Welcome. We have a Patreon page. Moving on. Yes, yeah. Carry on, sir. Sorry to take over from the front row here.
No, that's fine. So you may or may not know that Bowie was enlisted to be in a movie called The Man Who Fell to Earth.
I'm aware, yes.
As Thomas Jerome Newton, who was, this isn't necessarily a spoiler because it's revealed very early in the movie. He is, in fact, an alien posing as a human person.
What? Like the book?
Just like the book.
Wow.
For those of you who either don't like to or can't read, that's what's going on there.
They made a movie out of a book, everybody.
Yeah, they just... Well, if you...
Coming soon to our Patreon feed, we're going to talk about books being made into movies.
Haven't you seen, if you flap the pages at a certain speed...
the words like it's moving. Words become a song.
Yeah, the words start to move, and it looks like people. Jesus,
and that is Hollywood.
That's
everybody. That's the secret. You don't know.
Yep, that's all of Hollywood works.
We derailed so quickly.
I know. Yep. So he was he's in that movie and he played that guy by that person. Nick Rogue was the director. Nick Rogue saw David Bowie in a documentary which we made
in Hardee's.
In Hardee's. It's like, what do you mean you don't have red bell peppers? So yeah, he saw him and he was in this movie called Cracked Actor, which we may or may not watch for our patron feed.
They made a movie off of a song?
It's documentary in which let's see. Well, I can play a little bit of it. It was here. Stop.
No. We just broke copyright law.
So, here we go. Here's a clip that Bowie fans, I'm going to play that clip.
We're not stopped. Is there anything behind us?
This is from the documentary. He is not acting.
But no.
Ready.
This is during his Diamond Dogs tour.
There's an underlying unease here, definitely. You can feel it in every avenue. It's very calm, and it's a kind of a superficial calmness that they've developed to underplay the fact that that there's a lot of high pressure here, as it's a very big entertainment industry area. And you get this feeling of unease with everybody.
New York?
The first time that it really came
He's talking
home to
about
me,
all of
what a
America.
kind of strange fascination it has is that I came in on the train, on the earthquake, and the earthquake was actually taking place when the train came in. And the hotel that we were in was just tremored every few minutes. I mean, it was just revolting feeling. And ever since then, I've always been very aware of how dubious a position it is to stay here for any length of time.
Oh, America could just shake itself to death. Okay.
Yeah, you know, he kind of introduced himself to America while he was also becoming more and more coked up and more reliant on it. So a lot of the, I suspect that a lot of the paranoia that, that, you know, you and I feel after we record one of these episodes on cocaine.
Yeah, when it starts wearing off.
Right. Yes.
Every episode.
That familiar feeling that we have.
Is what we say.
Yeah. I feel like he might have associated that feeling with America, which, I mean, you know.
Hey, you know what?
I mean, he's not entirely wrong, but
he's a few decades off. That's fine.
Right. But the cause of it is not necessarily understood by him at this time. So anyway, Nick Roeg, the director of The Man Who Fell to Earth, he saw this documentary and he was just like, well, that's my paranoid alien. I guess I'm going to cast him. And, he did. And this was good because it introduced us to David Bowie as an actor who can be very good.
Yes, quite.
And it also it was not the healthiest of environments for him to be in, because first of all, there was a lot of cocaine going on generally. But also just the stress of the environment. I don't want to paint a picture of Nick Roeg being like he wasn't a Tony Visconti figure at all. I think he just didn't really understand how fragile Bowie was at this time.
He wasn't one of Bowie's confidants who's like, no, you got to do it this way.
Well, I think it was more something along the lines of like, maybe the things that made the performance work so well were parts of his psychology at the time. That's my dog. His psychology at the time that didn't necessarily need a fertile ground to be planted in.
Okay.
I don't know.
He's looking for something.
He's looking for something, and the thing that he's looking for, Nick Roeg, is not necessarily the healthiest parts of Bowie at that time. Again, not to say that like there was nothing nefarious there.
It's
it
not
wasn't
exploitative.
Nothing like that at all. It was more just like, Nick Roeg, you don't really understand how deep this problem is. So that's not to say that like this movie like pushed him into a direction that he wasn't going to be going in anyway. Okay. It just maybe wasn't the most helpful thing that could have happened.
Because we've seen him take something too seriously before.
Right.
Whether it's his own crafted persona for shows or whatever, he's leaning into this and maybe not quite leaning into the whole I'm mentally unstable thing, but at least saying this is another personality that I think I identify with.
Well, I think it might be a little bit of both because he's kind of past this being a character and it's more like, I don't know if you remember a few episodes ago, we started getting into, I've been planting some seeds along the way to get to, this is possibly one of several second acts for this story, this narrative arc that I've been sort of playing with for
I've
David
been
Bowie.
on so much cocaine, I don't remember what you said to me yesterday. So
right, but I get you the good stuff.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of planted the seed of David Bowie hanging out and enjoying the sort of the theatricality of the self-destruction of like Iggy Pop, for example. And looking at that, or like the attraction to the sort of like darker, more like depraved existence in like a Lou Reed song, and his attraction to those things, and kind of going like, okay, this is really interesting, fertile, like creative ground to look at.
So he's not saying, "Oh, I'm glad it's not me." He's saying, "Oh, I could try something like this."
It's sort of this feeling of like, let's see how deep this hole goes. You know?
Interesting.
I don't think I've played it here, but there's a clip of Bowie talking about when he saw, I think he had a doctor who showed him like, this is a picture of a normal person's brain, and this is a picture of a person's brain after a lot of cocaine use, and there's like all these like holes in it. And he, in the interview, he recalls that like he didn't see that as a bad thing. He was fascinated by it. It's like, oh, that's so cool. So that's,
oh wow. So there are parts that are better and parts that are worse.
Maybe. Yeah. So
I'm a superhuman now, finally.
Yeah, so we have all of that, and then we have all the Nietzsche stuff and all of the Aleister Crowley stuff. Basically, all of the things that we have been talking about is coming to a head here in the peak cocaine season of our lives, known as Station to Station. Let's see. He has a memory somewhere of it. Where is it? Probably going to cut this out. Here we go.
In the mid-70s. Was it that bad? I mean, is the story true that you don't even remember recording Station to Station? Because if that's true, you should maybe forget some more. Sometimes that's one of my favorite albums of all time.
I can't think of one. I can only think of one incident on Station to Station. It's the only thing I can remember. And that was trying to get Earl Slick to I remember working with Earl on the guitar sounds out in the studio itself, and screaming the feedback sound that I wanted at him. I remember doing that. I also remember telling him, take a Chuck Berry riff, dan, 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 and just play it all the way through the solo. Don't deviate from it. Just play that one riff over and over and over again, even though the chords are changing underneath. Just keep it going. He said, what, man? And I said, it'll work. That's about it. That's about all I remember of it. I can't even remember the studio. I know it was in LA because I've read it was in LA, but I wouldn't be able to describe. I tell you what I do remember though. What I do remember is that I believe.
And I'm mainly playing it for this story because him remembering this kind of gives you a window into what's going on here.
Believe the guy who owned the studio, it might have been that one, it might have been another studio. I mean, it starts to get...
Yeah.
He was also in a similar place to me, and he just bought this incredible house up in the hills with all the contents, and he invited me over one night and he said, man, I got this, like, huge libraries and all these books. You like all that book shit. You want some? So I went into the library and I found these 5 volumes of a 17th century printing of the works of Francis Bacon. I mean, it was just like this is unbelievable. I said, I'll have these 5 if you don't want them. They said, yeah, it's just old shit. so I walked away with those 5 volumes of with things like New Atlantis in them, and all his experiments, Bacon writing about his experiments about refrigerating chickens, which of course eventually killed him, because he froze to death while seeing if one of his chickens had frozen in the snow. Pre-refrigeration, incredible experiment, and the guy was just incredible. Only a few weeks later, the guy was found dead in his swimming pool with 2 birds also dead under.
That's actually another thing that I think gets lost or has gotten lost in translation in these episodes is like he's always been so drawn to just these insane ass things that like this, the Francis Bacon and the chickens thing. It's like,
wow.
It's like, yeah. He's drawn to it not only because it's like interesting and like, here's this guy that's like cutting edge and doing, he's like, you know, all of that stuff, but it's just like that story of like, he died freezing, checking that his chickens were frozen. Like that's kind of what draws him in.
Incredibly mysterious circumstances. Sorry, I remember the circumstances with 2 birds also. Only a few weeks later, the guy was found dead in his swimming pool with 2 birds also dead under incredibly mysterious circumstances. Sorry, I remember that.
The guy that owned the studio.
That. Things like that, I kind of remember.
Was found dead.
Dan,
mysterious circumstances.
No offense, but yes. Stories like this, I think, attract you as well, and maybe it's because of your predilection for Bowie and these stories. But you're the one who's like, "Can you get a load of this? What do you think?
No, like, there is definitely that. I mean, I hate when people talk about like, oh, I'm a kindred spirit with this person that I like. It's super parasocial, and like I think that's maybe with both Bowie and Brian Eno, and I mean other people that I like. I think where I become kind of a super fan more than just someone who appreciates what they have done is where I can actually. I'm like, oh, so you're weird in kind of the same ways that I'm weird, and
yeah,
like,
it's not like, oh, Dan totally does whatever. Like I remember in high school when like a lot of this stuff starts to form, a lot of these behaviors and thoughts start to form, and you know, one of my friends. So both of us wore Chuck Taylors in high school, which was a statement in the 90s. Like that was a thing.
That was a statement in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. And the color that you wore was a statement and whatever. And you always had a reason for the color that you wore and whatever. And somebody accused one of my very, very good friends, Matt. Oh, you wear Chucks in a trench coat like Eric. What are you, Eric's Johnson? And Matt's response was, Eric's never worn a trench coat a day in his life. But yet people perceive that in a way where, like, when you're trying, like, you're in a formative phase and you're trying to identify yourself and you're looking at other people that you admire and do things that you like, there's nothing wrong with saying, I like to do these things, or I like to think this way.
Right.
So to have this sort of thing saying, oh, wow, I find this really interesting. It's so bizarre, right? Like it's not saying, oh, it's so random.
Right.
It's saying, what a bizarre story. Isn't that a bizarre story? I want to share bizarre stories with you.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. That's something where you seek out the interesting and unknown and not usual, and that's okay to identify yourself with, I would say.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know that I agree with this. This is I think Josh mentioned this on an episode of that other podcast at some point, but
I'm not expecting to that podcast. That's fine.
I'm not expecting to remember this moment, but he pointed out that he suspects that I attract weird scenarios to myself because I am drawn to them myself.
Okay.
And I don't know if I agree or not, but I have no complaints about that if it's true.
It's the same thing as like, I don't know if you've had this experience. When you're looking to, okay, this is further off topic, maybe, but I think it's a legitimate psych phenomenon. Like you're looking to buy a car,
mm-hmm.
and you're thinking about the car you want to buy, and you're comparing a few different cars in your mind. And then you finally settle on a car, and you buy that car, and everywhere you go, you see either your car, which you think is this completely unique experience that only you have, and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, everybody has one of these. Or you also see the other car you were looking at.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I've inherited every car that I've ever had, so I don't know that feeling. But I don't know that feeling specifically to a car, but I do know that feeling, and it's almost like the algorithm of the universe. Where it's
well, yeah, exactly. You know, it's just I'm paying attention to this now, and then you see it around you, and you could say you attract it to yourself if that's the way you want to go. But really, I think it's more of just a hyper awareness of a thing.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you can kind of choose to go either way in terms of like, you know, do I want to see some deeper meaning to it or not, you know? I'm just seeing what other, since we're doing clips, there's another one of David Bowie Saw the Devil. I don't know if we're going to do that on Patreon or we're going to do that here. But
David Bowie and the occult. I think that's a good side discussion because of his Crowley influences.
Well, actually, I want to do, if we're going to do that one, I want to do, like I said, this is going to be a clip heavy episode. I watched this last night, and this was the reason I texted you. There's one, it's like the whole time I was like, this is amazing. Let's hear from, we haven't heard from Angie Bowie in a while.
Okay.
Actually, here, let's change it up. Let's just do some more stuff.
That wasn't Angie Bowie.
No, but everyone is Angie Bowie in so many ways. So we're talking about heavy drug use, lots of cocaine, so much cocaine, a lot of paranoia. He managed to convince himself that witches were after him. Secret messages were everywhere.
Like they're hexing him secretly and.
Yeah, or maybe possibly they wanted his semen to give birth to the devil. You know.
Oh, well, okay.
Normal,
okay, that's fairly specific, but yeah, that's a normal paranoia. We've all been there.
Who hasn't? He may or may not have been storing his urine in the refrigerator during this time.
All of it?
I would imagine most. He's kind of an all or nothing kind of guy, so I would imagine that as long as there was a piss jug and or a refrigerator nearby, he would manage to store it. Or maybe he just peed straight into the refrigerator. Who knows?
No, thank you. I don't want that image.
Many people. If the crisper drawer is empty. Your aim is good.
Good amount of volume. You're right. Yeah, and it's a good height usually.
Yeah. I mean, and
some splash. You might need. Did you think he cleaned it up?
I don't think there's a whole lot of cleaning up going on during this time.
Okay.
As we said, he has almost no memory of this album or how it was working.
This album, we're like, we like it. Thank you, David Bowie. You made an album we like.
Well, and again, this goes back to what we were saying before, where it's like, yeah, he was coked up, but he wasn't stupid. It's not that like someone. Oh, hold on, stop. My laundry might be done.
Oh, do you want to take a quick laundry break? Because I also need to change laundry.
Laundry time. If you are listening, listener, if your laundry is also possibly done, or if you need to do your laundry, now is an excellent reminder to do that laundry.
Laundry.
It's how you don't smell like a hobo.
At work or at play.
Okay.
Cannon Walk, as played by Hitler's orchestra.
I hope you had some good music playing there.
I did not.
Or you put it in post.
Yeah, I'm just, well, yeah, we'll see.
I think it would be fun if we had like a good 2 minutes of something to really confuse our listeners who are barely hanging on.
What would be some, oh, wax cylinder music, because there's no,
no music like wax cylinder music?
Well, because there's no copyright issues there.
Oh, there you go.
Played by Hitler's orchestra.
All right, that's a keeper.
Isler's Orchestra. Find them today at Walmart.
Okay, so hopefully everyone's taking care of their laundry needs. As we were saying, he has almost no memory of this album. Creating it, he was Red Peppers and Milk.
So wait.
Right.
That was his actual. You joked about that earlier. That was what he was eating at the time and drinking.
When he ate, it would be
with that much cocaine. You don't need to eat anything.
Right. Yeah. And I think that I suspect that the Red Peppers were kind of the only thing that he could taste because they were red peppers. I don't know. I've done a weird combination of no research and an odd like fascination of research with this. The milk, I suspect he was talked into drinking milk.
This is nutritious. At least there's protein and fat in here.
I suspect that someone at some point basically said, okay, so you don't want to eat, that's fine. You're still going to need to drink like liquids though. May I recommend milk? And he was probably like, oh, okay.
Is it milk you say?
Sure. Yeah. And there has also been some commentary that the Thin White Duke persona character was almost like an inversion of the Young Americans aesthetic, where it was like very, very passionate, very. It was like this feeling of emotional resonance, but having this like darkness underneath that was kind of like lurking and waiting to get out. For this album, people have sort of opined that it's sort of an inversion of that, where it's like, this is just cold, emotionless. He's flirting with the aesthetics of fascism, pretty openly. And it's almost like, but then there's these moments of emotion where it's almost like this is what a person trying to project emotion might do or say. So everything's very heightened. There's no like on the emotional dial to this person who is like cold and unfeeling. There's no It's either 0 or 11. There's no like 5.
Okay. So it's not as if he took Jack from Diamond Dogs and then mixed it with the new style of music. This is yet another persona. It sounds like it's a different, it's another evolution. It's not just a blend.
This is post persona, really. This is more like this is a good amount of speculation on my part. I think it's like, okay, I'm aware that people expect me to be this chameleon and play these characters and everything. What if I say, hey, this is a character I'm playing, instead of actually just being this fucked up?
Because, yeah, I mean, and not necessarily fucked up. I mean, an emotionless person who's looking at the world dispassionately and trying to figure out his place, that's not unheard of. I mean...
No, but he's kind of aggressively seeking bottom at this point.
Okay.
And one of the ways that he does that is by, what if I dabble in this fascist imagery? Not necessarily fascism
bottom is
in itself.
In like rock bottom, not like the sex thing, right?
No, he's been doing that for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, yo.
Welcome to Bowiesplaining.
Ding, ding. Whenever you hear the ding, ding, that means somebody gave us 2 more coffee dollars. Ding, ding.
No, but yeah, he's definitely, it's almost like, I get the feeling that he's almost daring himself. Like it's really interesting. So there's a lot of, he's been interested in a lot of, Aleister Crowley, Kabbalah, all that fun stuff. We got a change in personnel. Other than that, it's mainly just, this is how bad it was, and that's why I want to kind of like lean more heavily on clips here.
Okay,
because it's one thing to say, okay, this is where he was at, this is what was going on. It's another to kind of have these illustrations given of a few moments.
No, and that's useful. I appreciate that. I'm also interested in the change in personnel because the album sounds different, not just because he doesn't have this cool new backup band. MS wait. Whatever the stock band was.
And your buddy Mike Garson's not with us anymore.
Yeah, Garson's, I don't detect any Garson.
I mean, there's Garson-ish moments, especially in TVC 1.5. But
but it's not the same, like, just unhinged in a good way piano,
right.
Like jazz piano. It's like he's like, hey, do you remember the other album that I did? Can you do that guy again?
Yeah, and I think that, there's definitely that feeling of like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what David wants.
So was Mike not invited? What was the deal?
I don't
Mike.
know. I don't know.
Let's get him on the show.
You know what? I don't think that would be hard to do.
Let's do it. I mean, really, I've done weirder things on the podcast. Like, oh wait, you want to be on? Oh crap, I don't know what to do with this.
This is me planting a seed for later on. Listener, I'm showing Eric a picture of David Bowie in his all blue Station to Station outfit. If you know the Ryko Disc album, you kind of know what I'm talking about.
That's a lot of midriff.
Yeah, the blue sweater and the blue jeans that he, I think, drew chalk lines on.
Paint or chalk, yeah.
And then there's all the circles. This is the stations of Kabbalah stuff, and I guess there was stuff that he was into, black magic stuff, and I don't know necessarily how much he believed in the black magic, like pre-cocaine, but I think the cocaine definitely helped.
open some doors.
Oh, yeah. And so the reason why this being peak cocaine is so important is, first of all, because the next album is a reaction to that. I'm not going to say anything more. Other than I fucking love Low so much.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, after this, we're in a place where Station, and I think I mentioned this in our text messages, Station to Station, in terms of top 5 albums, which are all pretty much interchangeable for me. Low, Heroes, Outside, parts. Well, let's just go ahead and say Buddha of Suburbia. Those 4 solidly always on there.
Wow. Okay. All albums I have not heard.
Right. This one frequently occupies one of the 5 spots, and then sometimes Diamond Dogs will throw out Buddha of Suburbia.
Okay.
Like it's basically 6, but if I had to go to top 5, this one is sometimes in there. So we're in a really sweet spot as far as I'm concerned, because the next 2, Low and Heroes, are kind of consistently in the top 3 for me. And this one is also, the first time I heard it, it was like, this is the best thing ever.
I don't know that I would have said it's the best thing ever, but I really, really enjoy this album.
Yeah, no, I'm glad
I did say to Dan, it's one of my favorites, and you said, of all albums? And I'm like, oh, well, no.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, you know, but you
it's
never
a fair
know.
question.
Yeah.
But it's very good. It really holds together well. It felt short. I wanted more.
It is short.
And David Bowie doesn't remember why.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that on side B, because ultimately I really enjoyed this album the first time and on multiple listens.
Yeah. So just for future reference, Eric, make sure that you have just put this image of David Bowie in his stripy outfit somewhere in your brain hole. It will pop up later.
He's less naked than other images I have in my head.
He is less naked.
Good.
However, he's also still naked without the clothes.
Oh, wow. If you remove the clothes, he is naked. You're right.
Someone did an entire stand-up act based on that, and it sucked.
Specifically about David Bowie being naked?
No, about how
just in general.
Like, we're all naked under our clothes, and it was so funny. So funny.
I don't get that reference. Yeah, we'll do a podcast about that reference someday.
So it was recorded in Los Angeles, a city that David Bowie really tries not to go to, or well, he's dead now, but he
doesn't have to try hard anymore.
He basically this album was such a dark period for him that when I saw him performing live in LA, I think he even made reference to, like, it's really good to be back, but this place kind of scares me.
Oh, David. Oh, I'm making that heart symbol with my hands. I'm not.
He had a new manager, Michael Lipman, because Bad Tony is out of the picture.
Phew. Is he Bad Michael or Good Michael?
Well, I think he later learned that all management was bad in music. And what else? There was something else that was going on at the time. Let's see.
The 70s?
You're in. The 70s were going on. Whole lot of occult activity going on, especially in LA. I had something and it's not there anymore. Whatever, that's fine.
I need to research occult activity in LA in the 70s, because I guess 70s was later than I had. Did I mention? Yeah, it was to you guys that I mentioned before one of our shows that I had somebody talk about how he didn't like Walt Disney because of all of his connections to Aleister Crowley.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe I didn't mention that to you. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago when a good friend mentioned, "Oh, this is why I don't like Walt Disney," and I went, "That's one I've never heard."
Huh.
And he said, "Excuse me, I thought you really liked Walt Disney." I said, "I do, but
but
I've
what
never
you
heard
just said
that
is
rumor.
crazy.
I've heard anti-Semitism, I've heard Nazi sympathizer,
right.
I've heard all these different things, but not Aleister Crowley."
I didn't know Walt was cool.
Yeah, I didn't know he was a cool Satanist.
Let's see. We're gonna go back into some clip stuff, and that's kind of the album. I mean, we'll get into more of it in the side B, because that's when we get into like all of the imagery in Station to Station that may or may not have been flirting with some fascist things, which that's fun. But and again, it's not. I don't think that any of it is him going like, right, I'm a white supremacist now. It was.
Please tell me not TVC-15.
It was really more of the aesthetic of it, and there are. He was a very well-read, very literate, very smart person. And I feel like if you could remove the coked up aspects of what he was saying and actually say like, okay, well, what did you mean by that? There would have been something that was more in line with someone saying like, no, this is performative and it does involve ritual, and this is how governments can control people. And by the way, there's a real danger of this becoming a thing. And this is also there's not enough context out there for people to understand where I would go with what I was about to say, other than the idea that is very hard to reckon with sometimes, which is that if you look at some countries who have become much more enlightened and less likely to engage in far right-wing authoritarian thinking, it's generally because they have experience with it. And
they've seen it.
So there's an argument that could be made there that I am very much of both minds on, where it's like, not maybe it should happen, but maybe it's
the closer you get, the more you're aware of it, and maybe it's easier to defend against later.
Right. Which is, 2024.
It's not a comment on anything today.
No, not at all. And it has, nothing to do with why I was basically in the midst of severe depression for a month after the debate with Joe Biden and our current and future president, Donald J. Trump. Anyway.
Yeah, you were...
It was bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
I'll let you speak to that, but...
I won't get further into it, other than just I was very sure that things were going to get very, very bad. And hey, at least they're trying.
They still might.
But still might, not. But they're trying. And are they trying the right way? I don't know, but they're trying. And that's really all I need.
We'll find out 4 years from now.
My husband is...
Listener who is familiar with Angie Bowie and how delightful it is to hear her talk about herself and her life, I understand if you want to just skip over to
you know what, before, if that's a thing, then like and subscribe. Please give us 5 stars, and then tell us what you don't like in the comments. We're fine with that, but give us 5 stars and tell us something Give us feedback. Don't email me because I forget to check that email always.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to probably cut down our website because it costs a lot of money to run a website that I don't ever look at or use.
Yeah, that's probably smart. I remembered what I wanted to point out because Angie Bowie, I don't want to say that she's a narcissist, but as
she hung around for a while.
As someone with a weird sort of defense mechanism against narcissists, she certainly sets off my alarm bells. That's all I'm going to say. And I did remember what I wanted to say, which was that around this time, Coco Schwab, which is not a skincare product, it's a person, began taking on a more influential role in Bowie's life. Good or bad, she's basically the reason why he survived this period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she was kind of like, I don't know. I don't remember exactly. I think she was his assistant or something like that, or became his assistant. But she was basically like, she understood that this is a person in decline and there are all these people around him that are more than willing to take advantage of him. So she just basically stepped up and was like, okay, David, I'm your mother now.
Someone needs to take care of you.
Right.
And 'tis me.
So, and I mentioned that because Angie Bowie is not a fan. And she also feels like Tony was a misunderstood hero. So, here's Angie.
My husband had seen my performance on the Mike Douglas show, he told me, and had written a new song for me, Golden Years. He sang it over the phone for me, just the way all those years before he'd sung me The Prettiest Star.
So, first thing, he did not write Golden Years for her.
I was going to say, like, really?
But
Prettiest Star, maybe.
Well, that's the thing. He, from what I can tell, allowed her to believe these things.
Oh no.
Because it was convenient. And I don't know that he necessarily said, I wrote this for you, so much as it was, I know that you might convince yourself that I wrote this for you, and I'm not going to correct you.
I think this is about you.
Right.
And my answer to that is, hey, how you doing?
Basically.
Manipulation Express.
Yeah, but it was also kind of mutual, and I think that they
wanted it. I don't know. I can't say that. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds, in all the things that you've played, it sounds like she wants to be more part of his life than she was.
I really feel like I think that she was a fan who convinced herself that she could be more than that, and that she would replace Hermione in his life. But the whole relationship was just not good, not healthy at all.
Yeah, gosh, it's a sad thing.
Yeah,
this story.
Yeah. So it's almost like the way that a lot of people assume the Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain relationship worked is actually how this relationship worked in some ways. So you might catch on to her speaking style, her cadence. It's very self-aggrandizing, very, that's her. That's what she does. I could be way off. Angie, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm sure you're a great person.
Please talk to Amon and give us the rights to the songs.
Right. Talk to Amon. I'm sure you two are on speaking. You speak regularly, and you both stare at a picture of David Bowie and cry while you listen to his music all the time together. Here we go.
Like we do.
Yeah. Right.
It had a similar effect. I bought it. Even if David was never actually there with me, I thought we'd always be together. Just as in the song. I had a very great need, you see, for things to feel all right. I didn't take any action then. I remained Mrs. Bowie and stayed at my post. Things were not just fine at all, though. They were, in fact, going to hell, literally.
Yeah, let's speed that up.
I found that out once again via a transatlantic telephone call. This time it was David on the other end, or at least the creature David had become, a friend-abusing, sense-mangling, money-bleeding, full-fledged vampire of velocity. Like coke addicts long before and
now
after
slow
him,
it down so she
he'd
sounds
learned
like
to
she's
travel
drunk.
far and fast,
Oh,
to keep his
that's
mind
even
spinning
better.
in tight little circles, even when standing perfectly still. To arrange an existence almost entirely devoid of daylight.
Oh, God. Is Aunt Angie going to be there?
A world
Aunt Angie's
view
going to be there.
utter paranoia.
All she does is get drunk off of box
In
wine
his
and talk
case,
about her
no great
ex-husband.
stretch. And to start slowly sucking the life out of everybody close to him.
Talks about sucking
He was calling me from Los Angeles, only half a world away from Oakley Street.
Okay, here we go.
But from the way he sounded, he might just as well have been off in the emptiness of some awful cold black hole, out there in the timeless infinity, far beyond the reach of warmth and earthly human feeling.
Okay, listener, I'm just going to give you the conceit here. Yes, we are playing the Angie Bowie thing. The reason I'm doing this is a couple things. First of all, to get the story out there, but also to paint a picture of these are the people that this man was surrounded by. Okay.
Well, that's
He
why
said he was with the devil, or more specifically, that he was about to be with the devil. He was in a house somewhere. He didn't know exactly where, except that it was in L.A., and 3 people, a warlock and 2 witches, were holding him for some terrible Satan-related reason. He kept trying, very incoherently, to explain.
Satan-related reasons.
He wanted to get away, he said, but he didn't have any money and he didn't know where he was, and anyway, the witches wouldn't let him leave. He was talking in slurred, hushed tones, and hardly making sense, and was crazed with fear. He sounded really spooky. I'd heard David speaking from some pretty cold, strange places, both by telephone and in person, but this sounded different, worse than I'd heard before. I got scared and insisted that he give me the number where he was, telling him he couldn't keep it a secret the way he liked to. It's a measure of how frightened he was that he gave it to me before he hung up the phone, or someone hung up for him.
So, long story short, just so we're not like just straight up listening.
Yeah, this is 15 minutes of episode.
Yeah. So she gets the phone number and she calls the manager, and she says, hey, can you call the number?
New Tony. Michael.
New Tony. yes. Michael Tony.
Michael New Tony.
Michael New Tony. And she says, hey, could you call the number and just fix it? Right. And he basically convinces Bowie to step outside, hail a cab, and go to new Michael Tony's house where they will pay for the cab. He can stay with them. And he's like, and then Angie is like, okay, I got to go fix this. I got to go save David. And let's see. Let's skip ahead. Let's see where we at. Where are we at?
Hailing a cab.
Well, yep. Just like I said.
Actually have to force David Bowie to exercise Lance was pretty funny under any
here we go.
lots of love.
Oh,
even in his paranoid fantasies, David was leading with his dick. But like most coke fantasies, it lacked any real in those witches, from whom he'd escaped just as Michael had advised, by walking out and hailing a cab.
Here we go.
The deal, he said, was that those people wanted his semen. They wanted to hold him and cast a spell over him, again, I'm not kidding, so that he could inseminate one of the witches in a ritual ceremony on All Saints' Eve, and thereby bring an offspring of Satan into the world. Well, I thought, fancy that. The things a few grams of cocaine can do to inspire people. David's tale had lots of color and even greater grandiosity, but like most coke fantasies, it lacked any real spark, any true imagination. You watch Rosemary's Baby, then spend 2 days snorting 3-inch lines every 15 minutes in the company of some scumbag dealer and his coke horse, and presto!
Holy crap.
You're a poor little Mia Farrow and the big old power-procreating beast man rolled into one. An exceptionally interesting outing for the Lance of Love.
That was his penis, Lance of Love.
Oh,
according to her. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Even in his
the Holy
paranoid
Lance,
fantasies,
right.
David was leading with his dick. I didn't know whether to laugh in his face or go cry in a corner. The idea of anyone thinking they'd actually have to force David Bowie to exercise Lance was pretty funny under any circumstances. On the other hand, the spiritual degradation demonstrated by his story was really sad. So I want to let up until you've eaten.
Wow.
Dumb mistake. Don't tell me what to do, he yelled. Don't you tell me what to do. And he went. When I came back,
she arrives and she visits him at the house of new Michael Tony, where Bowie is refusing to eat because he's convinced that they are going to poison him.
Oh, okay. Because they're not the trustworthy witches.
Exactly. Okay. AKA, they're not giving him cocaine.
Oh, not a 3-inch line every 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Holy crap. This man didn't sleep for a
fucking
month.
Yeah. Yeah. And he basically refused to. He would refuse to eat. And Angie came over there kind of knowing that, like, okay, if I could just get him to eat, then maybe he will sleep.
Here we go. Into him. The idea being that food might slow him down enough to consider the even better idea of sleep. I had to buy and prepare the food myself, though, since, so David explained, Michael and Nancy would try to poison him if given the chance. Having communicated that essential item, he went off to the guest room to do some more toot. I went off to the supermarket. When I came back, loaded with all his favorite delicacies, he was in a state of utter panic because I'd been gone so long. I calmed him down a little, then put a foot wrong.
It's just softly tooting.
Babe, I think it might be a good idea if you stopped doing the cocaine for a little while. You know how it takes your appetite away and you need to eat? So you might want to let up until you've eaten. Dumb mistake. Don't tell me what to do, he yelled. Don't you tell me what to do. And he went into his room, slamming the door. Sniffing noises ensued. As the afternoon wore on, he wouldn't come out of his room. Finally, after endless soothing talk from Michael and me, he opened the door. Very soon, we wished he hadn't. The problem was straight across the hallway, on the wall of a room Michael and Nancy were using as a home office. A photograph of David and me taken in Paris in happier times, with him in a white suit and me in a white dress. David took one look at the photograph and freaked right out. He stood there, death white, rigid and shaking, pointing at the picture, with a look of total horror on his face. And it got worse. The shaking intensified very quickly, and I began to lose it. It occurred to me.
I also forgot to add, in that sort of perfect storm of his mental state during this time, I'm sure you remember, but you might need a reminder that there is this history of mental illness in his family. Like,
I don't need that reminder, but yes.
Yeah.
I keep wondering, it went away in that sort of adolescent, like, oh, we're all insane here. Oh, right. I'm insane. I'm an artist. I'm insane. But there's a real history.
Yeah. And I don't know that this is necessarily this getting realized, but I can't imagine that it helped to be like, maybe I'm just losing my mind. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is just it's a family curse,
It's been lurking in his head for so long. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't it be part of his thought process here, even though he's deliberately introducing drugs into his life,
right?
That make that possibility more real. And I don't want to belittle addiction or anything like that, but ultimately this is a choice, and this is something that he, once he gets beyond control, he needs some help to get out of. But
totally.
Gosh.
Yeah. So not to get into side B territory, but this also, this makes certain parts a lot more interesting and a lot more vivid, like Station to Station, TVC 15, for example, and even Stay to some extent.
Oh, you mean the lyric? Oh.
Well, I'm talking about the TV that eats your girlfriend.
That. Okay. All right.
But also, and again, I don't want to get too far into side B territory here, but another reason why we're touching on this is it really colors the Word on a Wing and Wild as the Wind, where it's just like, oh fuck.
Like, oh man, what he's living through right now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the way that we're doing these episodes because I want to listen to it now.
Yeah. No,
Why didn't we think of this earlier?
Well, I don't think we needed it until now.
Okay.
because I think this album is it's not. I mean, it's inconsequential in some ways, but what's going on behind it is so intense, and it also happens to be a turning point in his approach to recording. So it's like it's interesting in that it's not an album that people think of in terms of like, I guess this is like his revolver in a way, to use Beatle terms.
I get those terms. Yes.
It's like, unless you know what's going on, it just seems like another really good, interesting album. But then if you do know what's going on, you're able to recognize that, like, oh, we don't get all of the other fucking horse shit that they do afterwards. Right. Sorry, I had to. Unless we get this. And this is sort of, that's where we're at here.
Used epileptic seizure, which could kill him. People die in such states, literally shaking themselves to death, snapping their heads back and forth so hard that they break their necks.
Which is what she just said.
It didn't get that far, though. With Michael, Nancy, and me in his face demanding to know what was circling my waist.
She saved him. It's
was
fine.
Black.
I'm glad you're catching on to that, because that is definitely, those are the parts that I have skipped, basically, is her talking about how, like, oh, I have to be the one to fix everything, like always. I have to be the one to save
Angie.
everyone.
Oh no.
Yeah, poor Auntie. By the way, it also I don't know if you remember, but she basically abandoned her child like immediately after he was born. And David Bowie was given. David Bowie, the person who, like, I mean, great musician and all of this, but like not
a father figure.
Not a father figure, was given sole custody by a court.
I mean, he sang a whole song about how, if you don't want to do your lessons, just hang out with me.
Right, exactly.
Fine.
And tremor, his arm encircling my waist was black. Well, so it was, or at least it was dark. And although there was no big deal to anyone else, it was a shadow, a quirk of exposure or printing. Whatever, who cared? To David, it was the kiss of death. In his scheme of things, the fact that his arm around my waist was black meant that the witches were going to kill me as a way of getting to him. It signified, moreover, that their thrall had penetrated into his immediate environment. So back into his room he ran, and the door slammed shut again.
It could also mean that he wanted her to leave.
Yeah, he might just be saying, "Hey, please go." Also, I know a few witches, and most of them are not this nefarious.
Right.
Like legit witches in the real world. But, maybe not 70s witches.
I think 70s witches are,
maybe they were more intense.
Different. Yeah, I think that was the whole deal, is that they were very much like, ooh, we're witches, like
nowadays they're like,
witch. Yeah.
It's the thing that I do. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
do you want to hear about it? No, that's fine.
All right, that's fine. I'm not like a vegan or anything. Anyway.
Creative solutions were called for now. If David couldn't save himself by making a transition to my rationale, then I had to adopt his. I had to jump into that nest of spooks and demons with him and deal with them on his terms. Fortunately, I had the means of doing that. In my address book was the telephone number of Wally Almlark, a very respectable white witch whom David and I had met in London while she was working with Robert Fripp on some weird ESP album project. Wally was great. She really knew her stuff, and she even looked the part, very pale and gothic, with good gypsy Slavic cheekbones, and to my great good fortune, she was home to take my call. I explained the situation to her, and she gave me a prescription over the phone, the ritual scattering of household herbs, she said, together with certain readings from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which David had kept handy since his Buddhist monk wannabe days, should temporarily restore a relatively...
dismissive she is of him.
He toyed with this thing. Who cares? Robert Fripp? Dumb. Who cares? He talked to Robert Fripp once. Nobody cares.
So the main takeaway there is that she basically decided that if she's going to save him or help him through this, which I don't know that her being there was necessarily helpful. That the way that she would be able to reason with him would be to say like, no, yeah, you're right. These witches are out to get you, and I need to help you now.
So we need Robert Fripp from King Crimson to help you.
No, that's later. That's you know he makes an appearance later, right?
No,
not in this album.
You know what? I don't know enough about King Crimson or Robert Fripp.
Oh, I thought you were a fan.
Oh, I am a fan. It's just one of those things. I've never really looked into them. The only King Crimson stuff I've listened to is their first album. I know nothing beyond that. I know that there were major issues after that.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I never looked into it. It was just one of those things like in high school and college. I'm like, have you heard this album? It's awesome. And I don't think I've ever researched it in the age of the internet. Because back then it was like, cool. Yeah, this album is weird. Yeah, we're in the 90s and that was from the 70s and we don't need to ever talk about it again.
Well, then when we get to Heroes, you are going to be in for a treat.
Oh, I love treats. And I love Robert Fripp.
And that's kind of let's see, sign someone as a coke addict. Yeah, I wanted to play this just because it's fun. It has nothing to do with David Bowie. It's just James Brown,
which is
they call him the Godfather of Soul, Mr. Dynamite.
By the way, like you were talking about before, how I love sharing weird things. This is up there with the Orson Welles being drunk.
They're French.
I
spent a good hour last week trying to show Brandy different clips to explain why this was interesting, she didn't get it.
It's one of the best.
No, this is great. And she's like, "Who's Orson Welles?" I'm like,
God. Okay, Here we go. Listener, if we're basically done, I think, with a lot of the side A content, because again, it's historically it's just the band changed a little bit. Young Americans turned into Station to Station. I have my own sort of ideas or theories behind why we go in this direction, which is I don't know if it's more of a site. Well, I already mentioned it, so we can talk more about it in side B, but I'll just go ahead and float it now. I suspect, and again, this is just speculation on my part, which that's what that word means. So I said the same thing twice, just like Angie Bowie. It's as you know, he was kind of insecure about Young Americans as an album in terms of it being a soul album. And this is a person who, appropriation isn't a new idea. It's just an idea that we are kind of freshly introduced to in this day and age. It's always been an issue. It's always been something that has been talked about, but not necessarily as prominently as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that there was a feeling of
I'm stealing music from these people.
I'm stealing music from these people, and I'm getting more recognition for this than these other people who like, okay, yeah, maybe this album is good. Maybe the stuff that I'm doing is good. It's not that I'm saying it's bad, but it's at least as it's this other person over here that's been doing this shit for like 20 years who I grew up listening to. They're still unknown, and their stuff is at least as good as what I did, probably better. And no one knows who they are. No one cares. No one's listening to them.
Like a rejected Luther Vandross song becomes this hit from David Bowie.
Right.
Maybe.
So I would imagine that there's some amount of it possibly weighed on him. And I think that might be partially, I don't think that this whole Thin White Duke thing is entirely because of this, but I feel like if Thin White Duke is at least in part a manifestation of that lingering feeling of like God, I am such a charlatan. I took this thing from people who didn't necessarily offer. It's not even like a crime was committed, but more of a like, well, it's an injustice, that like this is such bullshit that like people are only listening to this because I'm doing it, and that's not okay. I think that we would still get a lot of the stuff in Station to Station regardless. I just think that there's maybe a hint of that somewhere in the background of like, and I knowing kind of how his aesthetic works, where it's just like, okay, well, what if I was this? Okay. But anyway, that's that. Oh yeah. So like I was saying, we've kind of gotten through the bulk of the side A material. I do want to share, for those of you who aren't familiar, this is Orson Welles' drunk outtakes for Paul Masson wine commercial. This is an actual thing.
This isn't just Maurice LaMarche doing his voice.
Turn camera. Mark. 102, take one. With overlap, action please.
He's looking at it.
Action also.
He's thinking about it.
He doesn't do anything?
No, it's sorry, cut. Yeah, rolling.
Just
102, take two. Ah, the French champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. There is a California champagne by Paul Masson, inspired by that same French excellence. It's fermented in the bottle, and like the best French champagne, it's vintage dated. So Paul Masson.
102, take three.
Everything is cut and he keeps talking.
Action, please.
Ah, the French champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. There is a California champagne by Paul.
I love how on this one. Hold on. Keep an eye.
He's rubbing his eyes.
Well, there's that, yeah. But then, like, what draws me to this one so every time I watch it is
is it the young people?
Keep an eye on this guy, because you can see him for a brief moment be like, oh, "Fuck, this isn't gonna take." Like, why am I trying? Like,
they're not gonna keep this one.
Yeah,
the French champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. There is a California champagne by Paul Masson, inspired by that same French excellence.
Fingers the bottle.
It's fermented in the bottle, and like the best French champagne, it's
like he's just giving up. He's just going to
the He didn't even pour anything in the glass.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't need more.
Yeah, it's fine. This isn't gonna work. So this is. It's not up. It's not as good, but it's up there.
And the hardest
James
working
Brown
man
getting
in
interviewed
showbiz,
high as a
very
kite.
soon, he may be known as the defendant. Grammy-winning soul singer James Brown is about to embark on a South American tour, but it's this tour.
Eric, have you seen this?
No, not the James Brown.
With the law. Brown says that he and his wife had an argument.
Paul Masson.
She wasn't going on the tour with him. Adrian Brown and
listener, I just want to, for a brief moment, thank our sponsor, Spectrum Cable. If you
the internet,
if you feel like too many good things are happening in your life and you still need an internet service provider, I recommend Spectrum Cable, because they will introduce an element of chaos and what's the word? Antagonism to your life that it's priceless, just like the French and their wine.
South Carolina police say that in the argument, it resulted, as a matter of fact,
once again, Spectrum Cable.
Adrian Brown assaulting his wife with a lead pipe and firing a gun at a car. These are charges that Brown denies. He was released yesterday on $15,000 bond. He joins us from Atlanta to discuss the charges, and we welcome you, James Brown. How did all of this trouble begin?
Living in America.
What?
There's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong at all. You're not in any difficulty, but you're out on bond.
No, I'm not.
Have all the charges been dropped?
Yeah, I'm out on love.
Well, are you out on love or out of love? Which is it?
Out on love. Alone from night to night, you find me.
Now, James, this isn't the first time you and your wife have had a problem. Are the two of you going to be able to work this out?
Let's talk about some music.
You want to talk about music, and you don't want to talk about what happened?
No, it's all over.
Well, let's talk about your tour. When are you leaving?
We're leaving tomorrow.
And where are you going?
Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Now, your fans will have...
I can't tell you how much this reminds me of being a substitute teacher and like trying really, really hard to have like an actual conversation with like an eighth grader who just doesn't...
In your room.
Yeah, where you're just like, okay, look, I don't even care.
Did you bring the paper or not?
Right. Yeah. I just want... I don't care what the answer is. I just need an answer, please. Just, I need to, like, I'm just trying to figure out which person on this sheet are you so that I can sign it and send it. You could even take it to the office for me and never come back. I'm fine with that. I don't care.
Have you heard of Minecraft, Mr. 100%.
Dan? This is so that feeling.
I've read all about this, James. Aren't you concerned about that?
No, Dankeschön. I'm concerned because there's nothing wrong.
And what are you going to say to your fans when they ask you some questions about it?
I'm going to say I feel good. Papa's got a brand new bag. It's a man's world.
Well, that's the second time we've heard that in 2 days. That's very interesting. Now, don't leave us, James. You stay right there. What we have to talk about. Well, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing on this tour.
What'd you say?
What are you going to be doing on this tour?
I'm going to be doing Papa's got a brand new bag, living in America, sex machine, get up off of that thing. I feel good. Jam.
Now, I understand that you have already...
In the class, there's
James,
like two other people laughing.
Here. I understand you already have started divorce proceedings. Does that mean that you're now eligible?
No. Yes, I'm singing. I want to mingle.
You want to mingle?
Yeah.
Now, the women love you when you get out there. Why do you think that is?
What'd you say?
The women love you when you get out there.
Why is that, ladies?
Well, I'm asking you.
Huh? Because I look good.
You
smell good. I feel good.
And you sing good.
And make love good.
Oh. Well, there we are. We don't have to ask anybody else.
She and I had the same reaction.
Now, you're involved in publishing a gospel magazine. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Second Coming. It's out of Augusta, Georgia. It's Ankle.
Yeah, this part's less funny. Anyway,
Are we ready for side B?
I don't know if
David Bowie, everybody.
I don't know if I have time, but I think we should record side B a different time because I think this album especially maybe low, less so Heroes, but I think this one, I think
it needs another look.
I think
another look now that I know the background, just to understand. Okay, because I have thoughts on the album thus far, but to hear that Bowie has gotten even lower, low reference.
That's fine.
That's disturbing, and it does. I can think of things that play into the album a little bit more that I would like to consider while listening to the album.
Right. Well, and this album also introduces sort of a turning point where we get a lot more. There starts to be more of a through line, and the themes start to become more clear. Stay becomes, I wasn't gonna sing. Stay might have a connection to like there could be a thread that we draw from Stay to Queen Bitch, possibly to
that's a backwards line. Okay,
right. And then also to Be My Wife, which is a track on Low.
I don't know that.
I'm just, that wasn't the best example, but the point that I'm trying to get to is
it might be.
It could be. It's not entirely out of the dark, but it's not incredibly well founded either. It's just more. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that this is an album where it's like there is such a thing as a from here forward, whereas before it was just sort of like a hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, and things become more purposeful, but still fun.
Okay.
With this.
Now, what I want to know, knowing what I know now, so recording this album, this is different from Diamond Dogs, where he was poor and running from studio to studio with his crew of cool people, recording tracks here and there. So after Young Americans, does he have the cash to just book a studio in LA for 3 months? Because it sounds like that's what you're saying.
He might have the cash for only that period of time.
So his manager, New Tony, is saying, no, guys, trust me.
I think it's more that like he's not. I don't think there's any liquid cash there. I think it's all either going up his nose or he has just a ton of debt from Bad Tony.
Yeah.
He's not in a good place in any sense of the word.
Okay. So it's not like he's a success and they're saying, yeah, come on, buddy, let's record an album.
Well, I mean, he's more, ironically, he's more of a success than he ever has been. Especially since, Fame was a huge hit single. And by the way, I found out that John Lennon did, in fact, he actually was involved with the recording of Across the Universe.
Was there.
Yeah, he was there.
Just singing along in the background.
Which makes it so much worse. No, I mean, Across the Universe he was involved with. And Fame.
Okay.
He was also involved with Fame. Like Fame, I'll forgive. I don't love it, but it's a fine
good song. Yeah.
Again, I said,
Across the Universe.
Across the Universe, nobody should have ever recorded that song ever. Except for
I'll
you,
back
Fiona,
you up on that one.
if you're listening.
I'm a Beatles fan, and I don't like that song in any form.
It's a terrible song. What was I saying? So yeah, he's
Jack
kind of,
Day.
He's kind of more successful than ever, but also at his lowest point, and both drug wise and finances, he's like, I think he's able to keep the ship afloat, but I don't necessarily think it was a matter of like, oh yeah, we have all the studio time we need. It was more just like, okay, here's what the record label gave us, and we're going to use it.
Nobody's here today, so come on in.
Right. It was not a fun time by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to another re-listen.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. Hold on, let's dance.
Good.
We go. It's gonna be good.
It'll be good.
Right.
Let's head out with a little selection from DJ Dan. Oh, it's the regular one. Okay.
It's the regular one. Hold on. I just saw this. This is from an album that we have yet to get to. It's just Ashes to Ashes, the 8-bit version by 8-Bit Fanatic. A song by David Bowie, who is a person that we've been talking about for the past, hour or longer. So if that's new to you, then I don't know what to tell you. This is Bowiesplaining. I'm Dan, that's Eric. You're still you. And like I promised at the beginning, we have been listening to you the whole time.
I hope you enjoyed our responses to your questions.
Yeah.
And your exclamations.
And don't forget to go to Patreon, where you can give us $2. That's $1 for each of us.
By the way,
yes.
if you go to Patreon, go to patreon.com on a web browser. Do not go through the Patreon app on Apple. If you go to Patreon, the app in the Apple App Store, Apple, if you do that, then the $2 that you think you're giving to me and Dan, one for each of us, 30%, sorry. No, that's correct. 30% of that goes to Apple. So we're only getting 66 cents each, and that's close to the devil number, and we don't like that.
Yeah, we don't like that one.
We prefer to get a full $1, not 66 cents. So please, and this goes for any other creator that you sponsor through Patreon. Going through the Apple App Store is a new thing where they're extracting heavy tolls, and that's not right. I don't think that Apple, a giant multinational corporation, should take 30%.
I don't know. You know what? I think that they're job creators and they took the risk, so they deserve every penny that they can take from us.
You know what? Now that you mention it, our tier has just moved up to $3 for each of us, Dan and Eric. That means $2 for Dan, $2 for Eric, and $1 for Apple.
I just want to apologize to the listener for Eric's anti-capitalist views. I disavow them completely. Anyway, please give us money. Also,
please
don't give Apple money. Actually, we don't care if you do.
Actually, just tell people to listen to the show. I don't care about the money.
Yes, that is actually the most helpful thing that you can do. And if you know Amon, let her know that we would really, really like the rights to the songs. And
is David Bowie still alive?
She's always been kind of dead inside.
All right, get her on the show. Also, Mike Garson. Please reach out to Mike or Angie. Get her on the show. Get him on the show. Maybe together. Bowie.
Mike Garson's
totally alive.
Still alive. She's still alive. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
There's that picture from earlier. All right.
All right. Bye-bye. We love you.